Welcome to the Idea Talks, where we discuss big ideas.
God is working worldwide. I mean, it's just exciting.
His mom, she's like, when it gets crazy, just put your kids in daycare and go to the spa. And by the way, I don't do that, Drew.
Do I want to reach Utah, or do I want to see Utah reached?
I, Josh, have decided in my life that I have become a servant to the people of Las Vegas.
If you walk into your church on Sunday and you don't walk in and think this is one of the greatest churches in America, why are you there?
Do what's right, not what works.
That sounds good.
Sounds fantastic. It's a terrible piece of advice.
We're going to get through this. This is our sacrifice.
If they pass by on a curb and were there listening to you for 10 minutes, they were there attending.
And not every opportunity is an obligation. What if we do a few more choruses?
They need people to fill their institution. So they were simply reflections of what the churches wanted.
And all of a sudden I've created these superficial Christians. I love that word, these cotton candy Christians.
That's the fact you were raised in a legalistic system that seared your conscience over and over. Shh, this is wrong. Shh, this is wrong. Shh, this is wrong.
I still take calls personal who want counsel from me on what to do when his deacons have threatened to force him to resign, at least respond in a negative way because he's bringing in black kids on the bus route.
The big idea, here's the big idea for this episode. Today's big idea is becoming a charter member. It's the releasing of my very first book. I know, I'm promoting my own stuff. How to receive, not achieve, your real identity. You're gonna get a lot of advice as a pastor. How do you decipher the good from the bad? We're gonna talk about that in today's episode.
Welcome to this edition of the Idea Talks podcast.
What?
It is episode 100.
We're on episode 100. Are you kidding me?
100 is today.
Is this the one that everybody's been talking about?
Everybody has been talking about it. I've gone on the street corner and they'd be like, hey, when are you recording the 100th episode?
It's crazy. It's been also all over social media.
Over it.
Even they gave President Trump his Twitter account back just to talk about this episode.
That's amazing. Yes.
Yeah.
He's going to tweet us.
No, he got kicked off again.
Got kicked off again.
You know, everybody's excited about this episode because of the huge announcements we're going to make.
We got some big ones coming.
And because of the giveaways we're doing. We've never done giveaways.
We're doing giveaways?
Yeah, we got permission from Kylie to give. Now, hold on. I don't want to give away too much right now, but we got permission from Kylie to give away over $300
worth of stuff.
$300 worth of stuff on this podcast, and it's coming directly to you. Plus, we're going to reminisce about past episodes and talk about the future.
Yeah.
This is going to be an amazing episode. So this is the one you've been looking forward to, folks. 100 episodes of The Idea Talks.
Whether you've tuned in for just this first episode or you've been along the journey all the way, we appreciate you. Because after all, if it wasn't for your support and your liking this episode, we would not continue.
No, we wouldn't. Trust me. If I looked at the numbers and I saw them low, I'd be like, all right, done. We're done.
This is not working.
Why are we talking to each other with microphones in front of us when we could just go have coffee, which is what we want to do?
That's true.
But you listen, and that makes us motivated to
you.
keep giving out great content, incredible content, great interviews, information, and idea sharing from your two hosts, Drew and Josh.
But first, we have some announcements that we want to share with you. First ever on this episode, first ever to hear it. Nobody's heard this yet.
Okay, so this is a huge announcement. This is a big deal. What we have to announce today on this podcast is going to blow you away. Every single one of you that came out to the 2019 summit here in Las Vegas, you loved it. It was the very first summit we ever had.
Yep.
It was way different than any regional idea day that we had for years. The summit was the first of its kind for the Idea Network, and it was an incredible night of worship, incredible night of teaching from Tom Rainer, an amazing idea day, and the largest crowd we've ever seen. Then, fast forward 2 years to 2021, and we had our second summit. That's right in the middle of the pandemic. We won't talk about that part, but it was crowded, amazing. Hundreds and hundreds of people from all over the country arriving, and what a great time we had with Carrie Schmidt teaching us that evening. We had Carrie Newhoff with us virtually, could not get out of Canada, and we had an amazing event. We've never had something like that. Really an amazing time.
Yeah.
And now it's 2023 Summit coming up, and I cannot wait to share with you these details.
So is this going to be in Vegas again, or
where's
it going to be at?
You would think so. I mean, in 2022, of course, we have the Idea Day that's going to be taking place in Tampa, and an Idea Day in Chicago. And there's even going to be an official members-only event here in Las Vegas in 2022.
Super exclusive.
It is an exclusive event just for those who are official members of the Idea Network, and it's going to be a smaller, old school, what we're calling an old school, January 2022 Las Vegas Idea Day. But the next summit that's taking place in 2023 is going to be taking place, here it is, folks, drum roll, Dallas, Texas.
Boom. There it is.
It's happening in Dallas, Texas. It's going to be happening at the Great Lavon Drive Baptist Church with Pastor Robbie Green and team. What we've been developing already over the last 6 months, and I'm telling you, it will be a 2-year planned process to get to the largest summit we've ever had. Why not Las Vegas? Well, for many reasons, but if you were at the last 2 summits, you realize we have not a square inch to spare.
Busting out of the seams.
Busting out of the seams here in Las Vegas at the little church we call Southern Hills. And so for us to move the event forward, we need to then go to a mega church like Robbie. Robbie, that's right. You're listening. You pastor a mega church, very large, brand new, beautiful, updated facilities. They're in Garland, Texas. But this event in Dallas is not just the largest summit we've ever had. There's a new theme for this summit. What is that?
This summit is going to be our first ever family-oriented Idea Summit.
Wait a second. Are you telling me that this is going to be different in a way that I'm not going to like? Is it going to be the same kind of I'm a little upset. Don't change my summit.
Sure, I know. Everybody's really tied to their summit idea so far. Now, let's be honest. When this first started out, and we'll get into some of this, the Idea Days and Idea Nights in the past have been predominantly attended by men.
Correct.
As the years have progressed, we've got a lot of men also bringing their wives along, which is great. We love that.
That's exactly what we want.
At the last Idea Summit, our nursery and our childcare were literally bursting out the seams.
True. Problem. Wait. Where there's a problem, there's an opportunity.
Exactly. So we are going to try our best, and we're going to have some unique opportunities for you to bring your whole entire family to this Idea Summit.
This is what we're excited about. Several members of our own team that work with our Next Gen ministry, Pastor Caleb Sargent and his team, and Kylie went out to Dallas. They began to work with Lavon Drive team already, and they've already begun to map out what this summit will look like so that your children will not only have childcare, your children will have a full Idea Network event for themselves. If you've got several teenagers, they're going to have a full event. I'm not talking about just sitting around round tables sharing ministry ideas. I'm talking about a great event for your children in Dallas, Texas to have a great time. The kids as well will have a full program, not just childcare, but event-based. We're going to be releasing over the next 6 months, or 6 months from now, I should say, all of the details as it relates to what your children will be doing, what your teenagers will be doing, and yes, childcare all the way down to age 0. So yes, we want you to bring your wife. And if you're in ministry, my dear sister, we want you to bring your husband and your children. We want male leaders, women leaders. We want children. We want teenagers. It's going to be one of the greatest ministry summits that we've ever seen, of course. And we believe one of the greatest ministry conferences you'll be able to find in the country in 2023. And that is not hyperbole. We really are planning toward that direction.
Yeah, the reality of the situation is you do ministry with your family. And we want this event to really be ministering to all different demographics and age groups here to make sure that your whole family is included in this event. It's not just a pastor's conference. We want your whole family there.
Yeah, you're going to go away from this event and your kids are going to say, can we go back next year? Yeah. And the answer will be no, because the summit only happens every other year. Yeah. So they will want to go. They're going to be excited about Idea Network. They're going to be excited about the Idea Summit. They're going to wonder what's in Dallas and why are we going to this? And after they're done, they're going to have had a great, incredible 2-day experience. So Summit 2023 in Dallas, family focused. It's going to be awesome. But that's not our only announcement, is it, Drew?
It's not. Now, second on the list, there's some exclusive clubs out there. Are you in any exclusive clubs?
I've always wanted to be part of Club 33 at Disney.
Yeah.
I'm not invited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very limited membership,
Now,
very pricey. Probably.
When I say I'm not invited, the reality is I have not yet chosen and selected to be part of it. They haven't yet got me in their club.
It's not.
They've been pursuing.
You don't need them. They need you to be in there.
The way to view it.
They have no idea what they're waiting for.
But I got to tell you, that's nothing compared to the club that we have.
Yes. And that is our Idea Network membership program.
Yeah, our official membership program, which launched just at the beginning of 2021. It's called the Charter Membership. Now, that's what we originally called it because they were charter members. They were the very first members ever to be a part of the official membership of the Idea Network. And it's an amazing group of guys and gals. And this year, we're actually going to be opening it up come September. This is our official announcement, number 2. In September, we're opening up membership. It's been closed down all the way since, I believe, February. And we've had multiple people contact myself and Ermler and Kylie and say, hey, I'd like to jump on now. I have some margin in my schedule. I have some margin in my budget. I'd like to jump in. And I think they've been surprised. We've said, yeah, we can't do that. Yeah. And people wonder why. Like, why? Take my money. I want to be part of your virtual roundtables and all of the events that you guys do in this exclusive. Here's why. The reason is because Ermler is a master coach, and he knows exactly what he's attempting to accomplish and all of the information he's attempting to go through in this 6 to 8 month span. So whenever I say, come on, let's just open it up for membership, he's like, whoa, I know what we're going here, where we're going, and why we kind of close the door on that and then only open it in strategic moments throughout the year. So Ermler has given us permission to open up membership to 25 new members to join the Idea Network membership. So if you would like to join the over 100 pastors, I think the number is 103 pastors that are part of the official Idea Network membership, you can do so. We're opening it up to 25 members this fall. I don't have the specific date on that. It's going to be announced via social media, but this is your official first peek at the announcement. Yes. Number 1, Idea Summit 2023 in Dallas, family focused. Number 2, 25 new spots for the official Idea membership program.
Up next, our first ever giveaways. That's right, folks. We have 3 different rounds of $100 worth of merchandise and things we're giving away to our listeners and podcast listeners.
Wait, hold on. If I'm listening to this right now, what you're saying is I could win?
You could win.
Well, I couldn't
It could
win.
be you.
Not you.
Not me
or
personally.
Me. Employees are not allowed
the
to.
The proverbial they that are listening to this.
The proverbial I. Yeah. So I'm in my truck in Tennessee, Correct. And I'm driving down the road, and I'm thinking, I could win?
You're a kid?
Wow.
Now, I know what you're saying. You're like, I never win anything. You never know.
You never know.
So
you might still be a loser after this, but you might win.
You might win some awesome prizes. So those prizes are going to be $100 worth of merchandise to our Idea Network store. So if you haven't visited our Idea Network store yet, go to ideanetwork.church/store. We have some awesome merchandise on there. Let me just talk to you about some of the awesome things we have there. We have an Idea Network beanie. I have this beanie. It's one of my favorite beanies. I have a lot of beanies.
It's a nice beanie.
This is one of my favorites.
Right.
We have an Idea Network hoodie.
I have the hoodie.
You love it?
It's the softest hoodie. And I'm not kidding about that. Because if you go on and you're like, I'll buy a hoodie for $20, and then you realize, the price point is what?
Yeah.
And then you buy it. I'm telling you, the reason is because, look, Kylie doesn't chintz around. You know what I mean? Like,
I agree.
she has nice products on here.
Yep.
So it is the softest, nicest hoodie I've ever had.
You can buy the Idea Journal in digital or printed form. You can have a coffee mug with the coffee mug with the Idea Network on it. You can buy Pastor's most recent book, The Quest for Friendship, in physical or digital form.
I like these new T-shirts. I didn't even see these.
These are brand new. So you can buy Idea Night T-shirts as well as long sleeve sweatshirts.
Yeah, those are cool.
Pretty cheap, $9 or $24. Depends on what you want.
The colors on that are awesome too. They're black T-shirts, black long sleeves, and you've got that cool purple like design that they created for Idea Night. I totally love those shirts.
So I would highly encourage you to visit the store, but you could win over $100 worth of merchandising to the store. You could earn $100 worth of the Quest for Friendship book. That's right. 5 copies of the Quest for Friendship books completely free.
That's the book of the year, folks.
Book of the year. #1 bestseller in New York Times.
Well, in my minds.
In your minds.
Not New York Times.
It's
in Josh's minds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, we're giving you $100 worth of Idea Night tickets, which is equivalent to 3 tickets to the most up and coming idea nights.
Yeah, so you're wondering, okay, well, how exactly do I win this? I'm listening to this podcast on the day it's released, or maybe I'm listening to it just a few days later or a week later. Can I still participate? Yes, you may. Here's how to do that. All you have to do to win is share this episode on your social media page with the hashtag IdeaTalks100. That's IdeaTalks100. Winners will be announced on August 10th via the podcast and email. So very cool. You're going to win, guys. So some of you, 3 of you are going to win either $100 worth of merch, $100 worth of books, or $100 worth of Idea Night tickets. And that is all you. Fantastic. We're excited about sending these things out to you. All you have to do is go ahead and share this episode, and make sure you include hashtag IdeaTalks100. Man, that's exciting.
So let's get into the episode. This is our 100th episode.
Yeah, it is.
How many of these have we done together? We've done almost all of them.
Almost all of them, but
Yep.
the early episodes were all...
With Steve.
Yeah, with Steve. I remember him, Steve Miller.
I remember we had Steve on the podcast recently, and he was reminiscing about some of the episodes that he recorded. There was a little bit of a gap in time, and then I came along and started helping out in this podcast. It was a lot of fun. So looking back on 100 episodes, a triple digits worth of episodes, what were some of maybe your favorite episodes that you recorded that you can remember?
That's a great question. You know, the network has grown tremendously, and not everybody comes from my denominational background. In fact, there are many denominations represented. We're a multi-denominational network, and you know, I came from an independent Baptist background. So many great independent Baptists that listen to this podcast, and the very first episode was called The Independent Baptist Movement. I interviewed my father, and then episode 8 was called The History of the Independent Baptist Movement. That was an interview with Dr. Matt Lyon. Wonderful episodes. I really enjoyed those, but I'm a history nerd. I enjoy those things. I would definitely say early on with Steve, those were some of my favorite episodes early on.
I remember to this day listening to episode 2, The Influence of Books, and I thought that was the coolest idea. You and Steve, I think you took about like 5 books a piece, and just with some of the ones that you were reading at the time and some of the ones that had a big impact on you currently, what you were talking about. And I love the episode there where you just discuss, you know, hey, books are a really important thing in this world, and we really try to glean a lot from those authors and how the authors helped you. I think I downloaded like probably 3 or 4 of them that day when I was listening to it back then.
That's awesome. You know, in those early episodes, you talk about the most controversial episode early on was episode number 5, Worship Wars. Mm-hmm. That's where we interviewed Robert Bax, and this was 5 years ago, folks. So so much has shifted in 5 years within Baptist circles. But back then, to say out loud things like drums were not necessarily of the devil, and contemporary music is not the worst thing that's ever happened at the church. Maybe it's just new music for the church. These were some controversial concepts even 5 years ago. And man, that was a great episode. It still is very relevant episode even to this day, where he discusses his book, Worship Wars.
Now, episode 9 and 10, isn't that where you had all of your siblings on?
Yeah,
where you
parenting children to love Jesus. My brother and sisters and myself, we kind of walked through parenting philosophy that we learned from our parents. And then suddenly there was a 6-month gap between December of 2016 to July of 2017, and that's where you picked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was it like? Why did we pick up the podcast, and how did that come about?
So I think you and I had a discussion over coffee one day talking about, at that point, we had been coming to the church, looks like for almost 2.5, 3 years. We came here in 2013, late 2013. And I really talked about, you know, some of the skills and the nunchuck skills that I had and some things that I was really good at and really trying to pursue my purpose in life. And what was that?
Yeah.
And you said, hey, I don't know if this is what up your alley or not, but like this is something that we started, but it's kind of stopped because we had some challenges technically and that kind of thing. So we went over this and said, hey, let's do it. And the first couple of episodes, we kind of were finding our groove with each other as far as like what we would talk about or, you know, what the direction we were going. But I think about the very first episode we recorded, The Road to 100, that was talking about just your concept of like, what does it take to go from being a church planner and to get your first 100 people to come to your church? And you're talking about the importance of friendship and at that stage, you have 100 best friends. You know, you're not always going to stay there, but at that first stage, that's what it is for you. But July 31st, 2017, that was the first episode that we posted together. we've been going strong ever since.
There were a lot of good episodes between that and then episode 20, We Love Israel. We did that basically because we had just taken a trip to Israel together, and we just wanted to reminisce.
We were overflowing with milk and honey.
We were.
And we just wanted to talk about how much we liked Israel, really.
Yeah, seriously. And if you don't like that episode, that's okay.
Yeah.
We really enjoyed
But the
doing
cool part about that was literally in the middle of that episode, our tour guide host, Ezra, popped in the middle of the episode because he was already scheduled to talk at our church that night. So he knocks on the door and comes in. And many of you don't know Ezra, but Ezra is like a 6'6" Israeli that has great curly hair, and he's like has the most high energy ever. And that was awesome. So
we jumped into episode 30 and 32, and we did our very first two Ask Me Anythings. And when we did that, man, suddenly we realized how powerful those episodes were because twice as many people were listening to those episodes as the episodes prior. Sure. And we began to talk about everything. In fact, in episode 32 was for the very first time we began to discuss the King James Version issue, which was kind of a taboo topic in the denominational background that I came from. And you cannot question one particular version of the Bible, even though you can denigrate all the other ones. And so we looked at that and said, okay, where are we at that? What do I believe? Not as the network, but where's Josh on that? Where's Drew on that? Yeah. We really began to talk about that because I began to get a lot of emails and questions from people about that specific issue. And so we love those Ask Me Anythings because we really don't shy away from a lot of those questions. Whatever you want to ask, we'll tackle.
No, and I think what I like about those is that people, back then didn't know how vulnerable you were willing to be with them. And I think about, you're starting to be set up as a person that has good advice and has transitioned through a lot of things and have got a lot of flack for it. And you're willing to discuss that openly and say like, hey, like this is where I'm at and this is how I would advise you. And honestly, like I don't have all the answers, but this is what I've learned so far. And this is kind of the advice I give.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It is fun to just get on here and talk about what God has been doing, and we're not too afraid to tackle some of those issues. Yeah. In fact, we find it a lot of fun. We talked about episode 33 was right after that. That's when we interviewed Thom Rainer. This was right before Tom came out and was part of our First Idea Summit, which we talked about a moment ago. And that first interview with Thom Rainer was a little bit surprising because it was the first interview with somebody that was nationally known in a way that none of our other guests had been. And so that was a really good episode.
Skipping ahead a little bit to episode 41, I love the episode where we had the mental health of the pastor. We had Robert Bax on there, who has an incredible story about the journey of bipolar him and his wife have been on. How his wife suffers from bipolar, and he wrote a book trying to help with that. Pastor Aaron Flanagan, which is a local pastor, your friend, was here as well. We recorded that late night after Sunday church one day. Pastor Bax had been going all day preaching, and then we really sat down for a very vulnerable conversation after that and really talking about, hey, like there's been many pastors in the news recently that have committed suicide. This is something we need to address and talk about and be vulnerable enough to actually address. And he did just that. And I think about bringing awareness to the fact that, hey, it's okay to admit that you're not okay and really talk about some of the resources you can have as a pastor. I love that episode. It was really good.
Episode 40 and 48 stand out to me as some fun ones we did. Again,
could you tell we were going for some of the clickbait titles on some of these?
Definitely. Listen to the clickbait on this one. Episode number 40, Christian Rap, Babies in Church, and Frustrated Pastors. Great episode, a lot of fun, and you can get our ramblings on that. But episode number 48, we talked about deacons drinking and depleting your emotional energy. Both of these really came from what? They came from questions that people have. And once we started getting a lot of listeners, a lot of feedback started coming in, questions that people had as it relates to our thoughts on certain issues, what we thought was biblical, theological, or appropriate within a local church setting. And it was a lot of fun to discuss those issues.
Yeah, I like that the episode 48, we had Josh Hermler here, and that's really honestly the first time that I personally heard of the concept of emotional energy. We talk a lot about time management and all that kind of stuff, but he talks a lot about emotional management and how, like, for me, I'm typically an introvert, right? And I think about, Simon Sinek shared this illustration. I think my wife and I talk about it a lot, but as an introvert, as you go throughout the day, you start the day with 5 coins. And as you go throughout the day, you give a coin to each person that you interact with. And at the end of the day, you have no coins. So you're done. As opposed to an extrovert starts out the day with no coins and they're collecting them as they go along. And I think about, for me, if I'm going to, have a full day of work and come home to my wife and kids, I need to be able to leave some coins on the table for them. Otherwise, I'm going to be empty and they're going to be shortchanged. So I love that concept that he pointed out there.
It was a great episode. You can go back and listen to all of these, and I want to encourage you to do so. As we skip forward, there was one episode that we really needed to address, the blog that I put out.
Yeah.
And I've been writing this blog now for
JoshTice.com, JoshuaTice.com.
And there was a blog that we put out, about a year before, called The 6 Degrees of Separation, how hyper-separatism is diminishing so many good biblical denominations. And I've come to realize this is not just true in an independent Baptist circle. It's been true in Free Will Baptist circles. It's been true in Mennonite circles. It's true in it's becoming increasingly true in Southern Baptist circles. And hyper-separatism, the inability to say we agree to disagree, but we'll stay friends and we'll stay in ministry partnership and we'll support the same missionaries, we'll support the same institutions, and we'll support the same church planters, has become increasingly divisive. Sadly, even since writing this, even more as that has been taking place. I think the political divisions that our country is seeing are breaking their way into the family of God, and it's very sad to see. But this episode 61 was really dealing with how do we stop and how do we end this divisive spirit within the church community.
Yeah. Then we get into January 2020. If we only knew what was going to happen that year. But, we did a road trip to Idea Day episode where it was kind of like the goal of that was like, if you're going to attend an Idea Day, it's kind of have us in your ears as like your tour guide / concierge of Idea Day for coming to Vegas. We recommended restaurants and things to do while you're here and what the Idea Day would look like. But that was a fun episode for me because it's always cool to share local places where people can go eat and that kind of stuff.
And then 2 episodes later, we had no idea the racial issues that would be taking place in 2020. Yeah. But by God's divine will, we interviewed Kenny Baldwin with a session entitled Pursuing Diversity. What an amazing session that was. 45 minutes of pure gold. And you can go back and listen to episode 55. Kenny Baldwin is not only on that episode, he's going to be joining us for Idea Night 2021 in September. So just very soon. So you can go register for an Idea Night and hear. I love his title for the Idea Night. It's called Grace Matters, but the G and the R are divided. Mm-hmm. So it's the idea of race matters, but grace even matters more in the concept of race. And man, he is such a great preacher. He's such a great pastor. He's a great family man. But what's been amazing to me is how he has helped me understand the issues of race in this very complicated world. Yeah.
Now, most of the things we've talked about already are what we call typically evergreen content, meaning you could listen to it at the time that it posted or 5 years later, and it would still be relevant as we possibly could make it. However, there's probably a block of like 6 to 7 episodes in the middle of 2020, and we're trying to address what church leaders and ministry leaders were going through. I think about the time we had some church planners on via Zoom, and we just recorded the conversation about what are you going through right now? What are some of your priorities? How are you navigating COVID? And, hopefully you guys were blessed as a result of that.
When we get to episode 70, we have Kurt Skelly, Insecurity and the Deadly Consequences. Yeah. Kurt Skelly's construct and understanding of how insecurities can destroy the human soul, especially ministry leaders, that's worth going back and listening to. Mm-hmm. Episode number 70, I want to encourage that. Then 2 episodes later, or 1 episode later, we did one based on a sermon that I preached here and it was brought to the podcast called Legalism and the Seared Conscience. This is the one that's only 30 minutes, but it really is one of our most downloaded episodes where we really attempt to say, okay, what is the seared conscience and how does legalism blossom from somebody who has a conscience seared to legalism?
Yeah. So then we get into episodes 77 and 78. They're kind of partners in crime here, but this is by far still to this day one of our most downloaded episodes, and that is dissecting the IFB circles. If you want a history lesson on independent fundamental Baptist and the movement of independent fundamental Baptist, that really is it. I've recommended this to many people that are not only at our church serving, but also abroad, just to kind of get a primer, so to speak, on where we're at with current events with this, as well as where we came from out of this movement.
Yeah, and those were kind of partnered episodes with another podcast with my friends out there, JC, Brian, and Nathan over on the Recovering Fundamentalist podcast. We love them. They love us. And I had spoken on their podcast about this issue, and we realized, you know what, this is some content we've never really discussed within our own podcast, but Dissecting IFB Circles Part 1 and 2, that's 77 and 78.
Yeah. So jumping forward, we go to episode 87, where I think this was a topic we had not yet touched on the Idea Talks at all. But clearly, there's a lot of ministry leaders out here that needed to hear what some of the benefits were and are of having a mission board. And honestly, one of the gentlemen I've loved talking to the most, we've talked to a lot of people on this podcast, but one of the ones I think is most genuine, humble person, that's Paul Davis, who runs ABWE. And it was a great conversation we had with him about why should you have a mission board? What are some of the benefits? What do they believe? And how can they help you in your ministry?
And the very next episode is when we finally went to our weekly cadence. And now the episodes are coming fast and furious every single week. And so now every other episode is actually a recorded session from an idea day, an idea night, or an idea summit. And the very first one was, of course, how to be a fundraising, gospel preaching, always worried, never fearful church planter with Akeem Smith. And every single episode that comes out every single week has just been blowing away the last one. So this has been a great journey throughout, and I'm excited about the episodes we've done in the past.
So again, we just want to say thank you for your listenership and your support of the podcast. We encourage every single episode for you to go and rate and review the podcast on the iTunes store. We have a 4.8 star rating, so pretty good. I'd say that's pretty good.
Lots
of
good.
comments.
Yeah, that's right. Some people don't like us out there.
I imagine we have a few haters. I don't mind that at all.
Here's the thing. If you're listening and you enjoy the podcast, just to poke it in the eye of the haters, to get that 4.8 up to where it needs to be, why don't you go on and give us a 5-star and a comment. Let us know how we're doing and which episode is your favorite. That actually helps people find the podcast.
So now we have a very special segment that we want to hear from you. So we put a poll out on via email as well as social media, and we wanted to hear from some of our most loyal listeners over the years on how the Idea Talks podcast has specifically helped them in their ministry, been a blessing, maybe changed their perspective on something, or shifted their viewpoint to a maybe broader perspective. And at this time, we want to hear from those listeners.
Hey, my name is Adam Bray. I found the Idea Talks podcast a few years ago and listened to some of the topics that were going, but I was still in the process of expanding my ministry and letting God do His work in my life. And then last year, I really got involved with it. It's one of my podcasts that I listen to on a weekly basis now. And it was through being a part of the Idea Summit last January. Probably my favorite Idea Talks podcast so far has been the one with Stephen Miller, talking about going from associate pastor to a lead pastor, which is something that I am prayerfully considering in my own life. And with the help of God, that one day with His leading and His perfect plan in my life, it will happen. But I was able to actually reach out to Stephen himself and have a good discussion with him. And that's one thing I appreciated, was it wasn't just listening to it on the podcast. It was also being able to reach out to him and connecting with him personally on a personal level, and to know that he is somebody who is praying for me even right now. It's something that that gives me peace and comfort as I go down this journey. But a big thank you to Josh Tice, to Drew, who was somebody that I traveled with in the summer of 2006, which was just amazing for me to look back on, and saw each other again for the first time since college this past January at the Idea Summit, which was just awesome. I appreciate all that y'all do, and look forward to many, many more episodes as we get past this episode 100 and go forward with it.
This is Adam Pearlstein, pastoring up here in Renton, Washington. And I have really thoroughly enjoyed listening to each and every episode of the Idea Talks podcast. And really the most helpful thing to me personally has been what the purpose is, as seen in the very title, and that is ideas. You know, the church has always been historically at the forefront of developing and adopting new ideas, from preaching in locations ranging from the temple to the Areopagus in Athens to reach people where they were, whether that be discussing religion or philosophy, to using the movable type printing press that was used to print scriptures, to even more modern times using buses back in the early to mid 1900s to bring kids in to hear the gospel. However, it seems to me today that one of the overwhelming attitudes in so many churches is to ignore or even to eschew any new ideas for reaching our changing world with the timeless gospel. And I have been tremendously helped and challenged through Idea Day and Idea Night events, through the charter membership program, and also through the regular episodes on the podcast, to leave the familiar areas where I am most comfortable and to explore new and innovative ways to reach our community with the gospel and to see the gospel transform lives of those within the church. Some of the most helpful recent ideas have been in the areas of assimilation, of discipleship. I thoroughly enjoyed the recent episode where Josh talked with people in the group that he is just intentionally mentoring about the process and the result of that particular program, and really just of all kinds of new ways to reach a changing world once again with the timeless gospel of Christ. So keep up the good work, and I'll be looking forward to hearing the next episode.
Hey guys, congratulations on 100 episodes of the Idea Talks. This is missionary Calvin Hauser. I serve in the Philippines and have loved listening to the episodes even from 9,000 miles away. They've truly been a lifeline for me and even for some of our staff as we navigated the pandemic and really just fought the isolation that brought. It's been great to be able to tune in and just hear what God was doing on the other side of the world in America. And so thank you for what you all have been doing. Thank you for the topics you've covered. Thank you for delving into missions numerous times and kind of pulling back the curtain on some maybe hot topics in that category that missionaries don't like to bring up. And so thank you for doing that. Love the stuff on Baptist history as well as racial tensions in America. Those have all been really great, and I've appreciated everything. Thanks for opening the vault as well and letting us hear a little bit into Idea Day and what's going on there and the topics that you guys have had. I've never been able to make it to an Idea Day, but that's given me a little glimpse of what that's like. And so appreciate you guys, and keep up the great work. We'll keep listening. Thanks.
My name is Justin Green, and I've been listening to the Idea Talks podcast for several years now, and I can't tell you how much of an encouragement and blessing it's been to me in my ministry and in my personal life as well. I really appreciate the spirit of Josh and Drew and so many of the guests that they've had on the podcast throughout the years. Every time I listen to an episode, I feel like I'm sitting across the table with them discussing these important issues that we face today in our churches and in our homes and in our country as well. I can't remember the particular episode that it was, but I remember Josh and Drew discussing the relationship that we have with people. And I remember them talking about loving a person and loving a performance and being careful that we don't love a person because of their performance. Rather, we love the person because of who they are. And that really stuck out to me, and that's something that's stuck with me for a long time, and I really appreciate the topic that they brought up that day as they began to discuss that. But I really appreciate as well their emphasis that they put upon God's Word, their love for the truth. And I appreciate everything that you guys do to help people in ministry and in life, and you guys keep doing what you're doing for His glory.
My name's Stephen Ashmore. I'm the pastor of Kings Mills Baptist Church just outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. I am so thankful for the Idea Network and the help that it has been to bring fresh ideas and an excitement to church ministry. I'm also so thankful for the friends that I have gained through this ministry, to know that I am not alone and that I have the support and the prayers of other pastors and ministry leaders is such an encouragement. But most of all, I want to say I'm thankful for the impact that this ministry is having on growing and strengthening churches for the work of the kingdom of God. This is such an exciting and a unique ministry, and I am thrilled to be a part of the Idea Network.
G'day, this is Robert Bax from Australia, and I just believe the Idea Network has provided a platform for the work of God's kingdom, not just in the United States, but here down under and many other parts of the world, that allows for a unique collaboration between leaders and pastors and the opportunities to connect with one another internationally that we never were able to do so before, and then for the powerful communication tool of spreading ideas for the glory of God. And I thank God for the Idea Network And may God continue to prosper it and make it grow in a greater way in Jesus' name.
Hello, my name's Dennis Wilkening, pastor of First Baptist Church in Colville, Washington, and I've appreciated the Idea Network for several reasons. Whether it's the Idea Day conference or where you get to network with other pastors and the sessions of guys who are really doing ministry work and helping others do the same, or the Facebook Idea Network, where you get to interact with other pastors who do things a little maybe differently than you do, but that you can see are really impacting their culture and their cities with the gospel. Or whether it's a podcast like the most recent one with Dennis Fountain on making community connections and finding good ways in order to be a part of your community. Those things are just encouraging to me. The Idea Network has helped me to learn, to sharpen, even shape some philosophy, and especially gives us the opportunity to encourage others. There's nothing like cheering on others who are impacting their world for Christ. So I just want to say thank you to the Idea Network and to those who are involved in running it. It's been an encouragement for me. God bless you.
Hey, this is Rob Redland from Calvary Community Baptist Church in North Glen, Colorado, just outside of Denver. I want to first of all just say congratulations to Josh and the network for 100 episodes of the Idea Talks. I also wanted just to say quickly how much the network has meant to me and my church. It has had a direct impact on how we do things here, such an encouragement for pastors and even for lay people. So if you're looking for a great place to fellowship, come join us in the Idea Network.
Hey guys, this is Thomas Osterkamp, lead pastor of Good News Church in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I just wanted to call and say congratulations on 100 episodes. What an amazing milestone that is. I really appreciate the wide range of men and women that you have on your podcast and the different topics that they talk about. They're always very knowledgeable about their subject matter and very practical in how they approach it. But my favorite episodes are the Ask Me Anything episodes. And hearing Josh and Drew give insight on the different questions that asked is so very helpful. I find it so fascinating. I'm looking forward to the next 100 episodes. I want to say, keep up the great work, guys.
Hello, this is John Guy. I'm the lead pastor of City Point Church in Tempe, Arizona. I just wanted to say that I appreciate the Idea Day Network and knowing that there's just a group of guys who have similar ministry philosophies, similar ministry goals, many of whom have been down the road farther than me. Ministry's challenging, and there are valleys that I've never gone through and mountains I've never gone over yet. And just to know that there's a group of guys that I can go to and talk to, ask questions, and get their wisdom and advice along the way, it's encouraging. And so I appreciate the Idea Day Network and all that it represents and what it's doing for kingdom advancement and the gospel of Jesus Christ.
One of the biggest blessings to me about the Idea Network has been the Idea Talks podcast. I found out about it all through a friend that I graduated from college with when he posted a picture of attending an Idea Day. And when I found out about the Idea Talks podcast, I started listening to them every day, going back through the older episodes, and I just couldn't get enough. It was really refreshing hearing Josh and Drew and the guests that would be on there talking candidly about the things that nobody else wants to talk about. And it was humorous, and it was informative, and it was real. And it helped me through 2 very tough times in my life, transitioning from one church to another and also transitioning from one ministry to another. The talks that I listened to on there were vital in the Lord's process of helping me through those times, and I'm just so grateful for it.
Hello friends, Kurt Skelly here. I just wanted to give a huge shout out to the Idea Talks podcast and the incredible influence it's had to help further the gospel of Jesus Christ. It is amazing what happens when men set aside their preferences and their pettiness and just decide, hey, we're going to advance the kingdom of Jesus Christ with fresh ideas and new friendships. Idea Talks podcast has done just that. And I'm so excited that this is the 100th episode. I hope it continues for many years to come. God bless.
Folks, thank you so much for sharing that. It's so exciting to see that the time that we invest in this is genuinely and truly impacting the hearts of men and women out there and your ministry. So we're really excited about that. So where's this podcast going, Drew? Are we done? Number 100, is that the end? Do
Hang
we
it up.
call it wraps? Hang it up and be done?
Not quite. We have a lot of exciting stuff planned for the future, and we can't wait to share with that in future episodes. But we have some things we're going to tease now.
Yeah, there's certain things we can't say. Okay, we can't give away the farm here, even though we're giving away over $300 worth of merchandise. We can't give away all of our secrets, but we will tell you this: if you've been listening for years, or if you've just been listening the last few months, where the podcast is going now, well, it's going to be surprising for a lot of people. It's going to be maybe shocking to some people. Some people are not going to like the type of people that we're going to be interviewing.
Imagine that.
Coming up. But I'm going to tell you this, whatever it will be, it might be disappointing to some. It might be infuriating to others. It might be thrilling to some. But I promise this, it will not be boring. The people we plan on interviewing in the next few years, even the next few months, the type of content that we're going to be going after, I believe is going to be something that will be worth tuning into. So do not miss an episode, but because we're pretty excited about this. Plus, we're going to be doing some AMAs, again, some more Ask Me Anythings, which means we want to hear from you. You might say, hey, here's an idea for a podcast. That's good. Even better than that is for us to ask a very specific ministry-related question. If you were to do that, that would be fantastic. We would love to do some more AMAs. It seems like our audience loves those. But man, I'm looking forward to the interviews we have planned.
I am too. Just before we let you go, just a quick reminder, if you want to win $100 worth of merchandise on the Idea Network store, or some Quest for Friendship books, or some free Idea Night tickets, share this specific podcast on any social media platform with the hashtag IdeaTalks100, that's 100, and we will pick your name at random, and you could be a winner of some awesome, cool stuff.
Do you think I could win?
Probably not. Thanks so much for listening to today's Idea Talks. If you would like to reach out to us, drop us an email at joshtice@ideanetwork.church. If you benefited from this podcast, we ask that you take a moment to show your support by subscribing, rating, and reviewing the podcast on iTunes. Thanks again for joining us, and we will see you right here again at the Idea Talks podcast.